Hey Maria, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm good. Sorry about that. I completely thought we had a different time.
No, that's fair enough. To be honest, because it's kind of like quite weird working out the different time zones.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think this is like only the second time I've actually spoken to someone, in these chats like from across the pond.
Uh-huh.
Really, so it's like kind of having to work out, going like, yeah, we're 6 o'clock in the evening over in the UK, whereas like I guess over like where you guys are, is it like morning time?
It's 10:30 a.m.
Wow. So it's like 6:30 p.m. over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to say firstly, thank you for agreeing to do this. Case
Of
of
course.
like,
This is Matt. He
hello,
also plays in the band and co-manages it with
oh, cool.
me and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I was wondering, like, where did the name Maita come from?
It is my mom's last name. So it's part of my last name as well, because it's a hyphenated name.
So it's like,
And
so it's
it's it's a Japanese name. In my case, it's actually a very popular name all over the world. But yeah, that's where it came from.
that's cool. So it's like kind of like paying tribute to your family in some way, sort of.
Well, the reason why I chose it was because I wanted to come up with a name for the band that felt authentic, and I have a really hard time coming up with names that feel like arbitrary, and kind of like getting a tattoo. Like getting a band name is a commitment, and
Yeah.
so the only way I saw an option was to pick something that already felt very close to me, so I would never feel like it was a misrepresentation of me or that it didn't fit.
Yeah. Because it feels like, so that's what comes across also on the record, like in terms of your songwriting, is it feels like it's very personal kind of representations of maybe things that you've been through. Uh,
Yeah.
that if you like kind of if that if that's like an accurate description.
Definitely very personal. A lot of the songs are very personal. I think some of them are not entirely 100% like mirrors of things that I've personally experienced. I take a lot from stories that I hear from people I care about around me or people that I can easily empathize with. Because if I can get that thread of emotion and feel that in someone else's story, then that is also a story that I can really feel like emotional about and feel like I can tell it in a way that um, that strikes a chord for me.
Mm.
So uh, yeah.
That's definitely one thing which comes across as a listener is basically that it does feel like a record which does breed like with empathy, and
Mm-hmm.
it feels like I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but I found it really interesting how like the almost like the first quarter of the record, it almost feels like as if the songs start with like no real introduction. It's almost
Yeah, that's a decision that we made. I think part of it is because I started writing all these songs when I wasn't playing with a full band as much, and a lot of the songs had that like indie folk intro of like go through the chord progression. And I think as we were working on the record, because we were doing a lot of the like arranging and recording, and Matt was engineering it. We just kind of were like bored of these introductions when it's like, why don't we just cut right to it? Like, why are we wasting
30
time?
seconds,
Yeah, yeah. We just wanted to get to the meat of it. So
so it literally because it does like with the other songs, it does feel like as if it's like kind of like a kind of punch to the gut in a good way because of like literally starting with like almost with the first note. So it's like someone's lost their wallet, for instance. I just feel that I think one of the things I notice I pick up on is I pick up on the music's kind of energy.
yeah.
If there's something which like I feel that drives me along, then I'm always going to be kind of invested in it, really.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. That's what we are going for. Yeah.
Because like I also found that it doesn't matter what tempo like the songs are, sort of thing. But if there's a genuine sense of emotion, then I'm like, yep, just like take me along for this ride.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, but it's also like made me think of like I don't know, like I mean, obviously I could draw comparisons to like people like Cat Power, for instance, was like the big thing, which I don't know if you really listened to a lot of her work, sort of thing. Because I could definitely pick it up on like on the influences and like
That's cool.
another one that you get compared to is like kind of Elliott Smith style references.
That I believe that I feel like I was listening to a lot of Cat Power and Elliott Smith like when I was 16, and I think that's about when I was getting started writing songs. So if that thread still is there, I think that's really cool.
We still listen to a lot of Elliott
We
Smith.
do. We listen to a lot of Elliott Smith today too.
I did see you guys actually cover Elliott Smith on Instagram actually. I think
Oh yeah.
when you're doing no, it's for KXP at home
Oh yeah.
session
Mm-hmm.
did because I've been watching because obviously like with like I mean I'll explain that most of my life is basically revolves around gigs,
Mm-hmm.
especially gigs in largely kind of grassroots venues, and so it's like really weird. This is probably the longest time which I've not actually been out to a show in like probably the best part of 20 odd years.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I
like
guess same, but maybe not quite
Not
that.
20 years, yeah.
Because but it's really weird. Even like playing shows, but also going to shows. It's weird to not be a part of that whatsoever.
yeah, and I mean like I kind of wondered were there any particular places that you guys really liked kind of hanging out or playing, you know, over in Portland?
There's a
I mean, like we used to go to the
bunch.
Laurel Thirst a
Mhm.
lot. There's this pub in Portland called the Laurel Thirst, and it's had music every night of the week that I know of for the last 20 years. And they do like a happy hour show and then a nighttime show.
Oh wow!
It's musician owned too, so it's just like a hang, and like they have this great open mic that we used to go to, and we've met like a lot of our friends there, and
Yeah. So that's a sad one.
and then Mississippi Studios
Mhm.
probably.
Also, there's this weekend actually every year, the first weekend in August, is this festival outside of Portland called Pickathon,
Yeah,
and
I'm,
it's like the most the most amazing holiday I've ever experienced.
It's her favorite weekend of the
It's
year.
my favorite weekend of the year, and it should be right now. And I've gone the last 7 years, and it's just like the most incredible mixture of music, and everyone is like brought together in the forest to listen to these incredible bands from all over the world. They have a really eclectic lineup, and it really feels it's like about the music. It's not about money or selling beer or partying. Like it's just very sad that it's not happening this year.
well, it very much kind of feels like similar to festivals, some of the festivals in the UK, like Green Man or End of the Road.
Mm.
If in like Green Man's one, I mean, I think both of them they're two of my favourite festivals in terms of the UK because of partly because the festival sites that they're in are absolutely stunning, and
Mm.
because of they get like a really good kind of like quite a good mixture of artists from like different genres sort of thing, and sometimes because of I think they've got the same booking agents or like booking people who book for both festivals. So some of the lineups tend to be quite similar.
Mm.
I definitely I definitely say that both those two festivals are definitely festivals which I could envisage you guys playing.
I hope
Yeah.
as soon as it's possible, you know. I guess we just
I
don't
know
know
at this
when.
point we've been talking and we're like, I think we're gonna be able to tour Europe before the US, you know, because
US.
I don't know when it's gonna happen either way, but the US is like a dumpster fire right now. So
It's kind of the same with the UK at the moment, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We haven't handled it at all well. I mean,
Yeah.
they were just like within hours of announcing, you know, like kind of more easing of lockdown, of like the lockdown over here, then they've just had to re-implement.
Cancel it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just read that.
and but it's literally been about an hour after they announced some of the social easing. It's been like, oh, okay, so that's not going to happen.
Oh man.
But I guess that it must be really interesting. So like, I've been seeing some of the stuff which has been happening in Portland as well, which has been like, it's been like kind of weird to observe from like an outsider's like perspective. I don't know if how that has that affected you guys personally.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically in Portland, there have been demonstrations and like rallies and marches and protests
For the last 2 months.
ever since the death of George Floyd. There's been people protesting or like doing something for the Black Lives Matter cause every single day. Yeah. And there have been a lot of clashes between protesters and the Portland police, mainly downtown. So I guess the interesting thing is, like, when you watch the news, people have this image that it's like the whole city is like burning, but it really is a very, very concentrated place surrounding.
It's 4 blocks.
Yeah, it's just a tiny part of Portland, in downtown. So where we live, like, we're not seeing the direct conflicts that happen. We know a lot of people, like, I think it's been, I think like largely like the protests have been peaceful, and a lot of times it's majority of the times it's the police who are responding with excessive force to the protesters who aren't, like, I think the majority of what's happening, there's like graffiti and vandalism of buildings, but like those are, you know, physical objects. It's like
He lost his sound.
nothing compared to, I think you maybe to people. Like, people are getting gassed, people are getting shot in the head with rubber bullets, people are getting thrown into vans and like taken away and questioned, and it's especially since the feds were sent here.
It was actually,
escalated.
it was dying down. Like, the protests at the Justice Center were down to like 100 people per night before the feds show up.
Yeah.
And then when the feds showed up, it was like 2,000 people a night.
Yeah.
So
wild.
like Trump was like trying to do like some campaign propaganda, and he ended up completely reinvigorating the movement. And then because it got picked up internationally, like the UN Human Rights Council condemned Trump for sending federal troops to Portland, which is crazy.
Yeah, because it looked like, it felt from my perspective like I was watching like a really surreal version of RoboCop. But
yeah,
it was like I was watching it going, this is not any movie. This is actually this is like kind of really quite terrifying.
Yeah.
Because you had like the federal forces, and like the fact that they were like randomly almost arresting people for just being was like, yeah. So I guess that's the reason why I kind of brought that up, really.
I mean, it's very important. I think it's very important to talk about. And, you know, I'm really glad that everyone is watching what's happening, because it should be something that people are taking notice of. And I think like everyone in the US is really watching Portland too, because there's talk of like this being like some kind of trial run for like how things could be handled in the future. And like, from what I can see, like, it wasn't successful because the Fed's presence did not bring any peace, did not shut anything down. People got more riled up, and more people got gassed, more people got hurt. And
then you had a wall of moms, you know, even the suburban moms were stoked to, you know, like
lots of people came out. It was pretty wild.
You had like the wall of dads as well, because I saw there was like kind of expats as well. Which I was like, was like, wow, okay, that's really kind of, if they're all coming out, then that's really saying something. And they just
Yeah.
see, everyone wants to see just peace in the community, really.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we had like kind of quite a big movement over here as well with the Black Lives Matter protests. I mean, in Bristol, we had they actually removed like a statue of a famous slave trade owner.
Wow.
Which people have been campaigning for like 30 years to get removed. Statue of a guy called Edward Colston, and
Is that into the river? Yeah, I saw that.
I
That's
was,
cool.
but I was also placed in a weird situation because I'm seen as a bit of a, I don't know how to say this because of like, because I'm semi-seen in especially in Bristol as a bit of like kind of almost like a weirdly iconic figure, and it's like literally about a couple of hours after after the statue got launched into the river. I literally started receiving tweets saying that, or like the whole campaign saying that they should replace the statue of Edward Colston with the statue of me. And
And you're like, I'm still alive.
and it's also like, it's like if you're going to replace the statue of like some rich white guy, how condescending is it for, especially for the Black Lives Matter protest, to replace it with another white privileged guy?
That's pretty. That's yeah.
You
That's,
should just volunteer to stand there for like an hour a week or something.
Yeah, I probably should. I mean, to be honest, I just think that, yeah, I'm just like, I'm still alive. Come on, I'm not even in my 40s yet. I'm like 50 or 60 or something until you start thinking about making any statues towards me or anything.
yeah. Yeah, for
But
sure.
I was also saying that, like when you're describing like one of your favorite venues earlier, it kind of really reminded me actually of there's a community run venue in Bristol called the Exchange, um, which I really love. I think partly that is that all the people who work there are musicians, and they're all in like kind of various kind of like DIY indie punk kind of bands, and like they also have like it's like a real communal hub because they have like a cafe. Then upstairs they've got like a record shop, and they also have like both. They have like venues in both like the main room, it's on the ground floor, and then the basement venue as well. And yeah, I just guess that I was like trying to think more of like where you guys came from, like what your musical background really was.
For us,
Yeah.
well, I guess I really started out just playing solo. I got started playing music in like high school and college, and I didn't really. I was like, I think pretty shy about playing music with other people, and so as a result of that, I ended up writing mostly solo songs. And since I didn't have an electric and I just had my acoustic, I just ended up writing a lot of folk, like ballad sort of songs. Um, and it wasn't until we started recording this record when we brought in the full band, and really until we got together with our bandmates Cooper Trail and Nevada Soul, who are really also great songwriters and musicians, that we realized that it was going to be like more of a rock record. And I think that when we just started playing the songs together, and that's how the songs felt most natural,
Yeah.
is when we realized that there was going to be a shift in that. So that's my background. What about
Yeah.
you?
And I guess like I started going to shows when I was pretty young, like middle school. I was going to like hardcore and punk shows, and so I always loved like that loud energy and like going to DIY shows. And I guess like once I was in college, I started playing by myself because like and like writing my own songs because I didn't have anyone to to play with, and I had a band back in my hometown, but I wasn't playing with them anymore. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to do this myself. And so I would start putting together little bands um, around songs that I had written and put out a few EPs. And then after college, I ended up doing a lot of touring for about 10 years. And
Wow.
for the last 3 of those years, Maria and I were touring together, and we were doing like 100 plus dates a year in her Honda Fit, which I don't know if you have those. I think they call them the Honda Jazz in Europe.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about, like a little hatchback.
yeah,
Um, and those gigs were weird because we would play some house shows and we would play some venues, but we were surviving off of that. And so we also played like a lot of like wine bars and breweries, and I think like um, and then we ended up doing some Europe touring that was a lot better, but we kind of got burned out on that, and we're just like, we need to focus on playing only good shows and like shows with bands that we want to play with. And so once we made that switch, I think um, things felt a lot better for us.
well, I think that's the thing is I think sometimes that's what as artists sometimes people need to learn. They need to learn how to pick and choose, and then what shows feel good for them, sort of thing. I think sometimes that comes with time as well, because I can understand with people like kind of getting their names out there, sort of thing. Then after a while, it's like you don't want to completely burn yourself out either at the same time.
Absolutely. And a lot of the times you're just getting your name out there. You're not like, it just like you might think like not every show in our opinion is worth playing, because some of them like you're just using up your songs on people who aren't listening. Like a lot of the shows we were playing where people weren't really listening at
Yeah,
all. And so we kind of have a rule now with shows, which is that like they have to fulfill like 2 out of 3 qualifications, which is like we're paid well enough, or our audience really is engaged, or we really like the other bands that are playing, or I guess if it's just like a really cool opportunity, like if it's attached to something really cool, like we get to play like
In a
in a
forest.
forest, or we get so like I guess it's 4 things. So if we don't satisfy like at least one of those at the bare minimum, we don't play it. And so like it's just like not worth it for us.
yeah. Because also like you've got to like kind of make it worthwhile for yourselves, sort of thing.
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes it is about like kind of, I guess like establishing like connections, I guess. But then also like kind of knowing. But then also sometimes I think it takes a certain level of like kind of maybe guts in a way to actually even sometimes approach some of the bands, especially if they're people that you've really admired for a long time.
Yeah, I definitely have that shyness about asking bands that I admire to play shows with me. Like I feel like I got over it after a while, like because especially with the internet, you don't have to ask people in person.
Mm.
So if they never respond to you, then you're just like able to move on without feeling rejected.
Yeah,
Um, so that helps a lot. And I think also there's always surprises. Like there's always times when you're like, this is no, they're not going to get back to me, and then they do. And um, yeah, I mean, I think it's just always worth asking. People can say no if they want to say no.
that's true. And that's the thing is that's what I found out a little bit with, I guess, with doing this conversation series. Actually, I've been surprised by actually how many people have said yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like my 11th week of like having one of these chats, sort of thing.
Wow.
And
Well,
so,
none of us have any shows, you know.
but there's some people that'll be like they won't say yes to me. Then I'll be like kind of so generally. So I find it really difficult sometimes with non-face-to-face communication, like speaking for myself personally. And so
Yeah.
like sometimes I find myself getting really hung up because someone hasn't replied to an email or someone hasn't replied to like a message which I may have dropped them on like some sort of like social platform, like I message you guys over Twitter sort of thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's that sort of thing where you do fear how you come across, Whereas, like, I love doing these Zoom chats because I could actually see people's faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think so much of communication is also in body language and in little like movements, micro movements, and I think an inflection of your voice. So
It's always funny too because we do these Zoom chats with people, and like I kind of like how there is like a window into oftentimes someone's life in a different country. Like because I remember we were chatting with like a venue promoter in Germany, and it just made me sort of imagine like he's just sitting in his apartment in southern Germany, and this is like right when COVID started, and it's kind of like I don't know, it's kind of cool. It feels like it bridges the gap a little bit, you know.
Because I feel that, you know, as much as I miss the live gigs, I've been doing like lots of live streaming, and sometimes it's like kind of seeing people in their homes is like it's kind of like quite fascinating. 'Cause it's like as if you kind of have something slightly voyeuristic about them, because like you're getting to see people's apartments and stuff like that.
yeah,
You know,
for sure.
and it's
Yeah,
like
we're trying to switch up locations so it's not like the same couch every time, you know.
so it's like you're giving everyone like gradually like a kind of really slow virtual tour of your
Yeah.
flat. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because I've seen some bands do some kind of like quite extreme things online. Like I was watching Braids the other day. They did 6 shows in 24 hours on 6 different time zones.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. But by the end of the third one, which was the UK kind of gig, you could definitely tell that they were flagging. Having to work is like okay, we're only halfway through. They only had to do like was it the US and the Canadian time sort of thing, and
Yeah, I have a
Oh, that'd be so hard.
I have a hard time. I think the virtual shows for us are hard because they are so repetitive. And when you play a venue, there are so many factors that make things diverse, like the audience, the energy that they have, the way the venue feels, the way the staff is.
Sound person.
The sound person, just like the whole experience, like every day is different. And even if you're playing the same songs, they can take on a different flavor. And when you're just in the same house day after day with this like same backdrop and no people, like I don't know how people do it. Like I don't know how people are continuing to do live streams all the time because it just starts to lose the magic for me.
I think for me, it's helped me as if in you know like kind of as if in like it's helped me sometimes give me some things to look forward to and some things to like kind of you know has helped me to a certain extent, but I still miss everything else which goes around with going to a show because I think so much more than just the music. It is the whole way that I've developed all my friendships have been through turning up to small venues, sometimes turning up early and just like saying hello to the first person who's there. And because there is definitely something, because I think that it gave me like a sense of, they've given me places which I can belong to. So like I can like kind of turn up to a show at say somewhere like the Louisiana, which is one of my favourite venues in Bristol. They've actually named the hand stamp after me.
Oh my God.
So like whenever you go in, it's like they wrist stamp people, and it's like, yeah, Big Jeff approved.
That's cool.
To be honest, it became one of my favourite venues because they had so many great bands play there over the years. You know, ranging from like Fleet Foxes through to Scissor Sisters, Beach House, kind of like pretty much anyone on the kind of like cusp of kind of coming through. And I feel that I'm kind of scared of losing those venues. I'm really scared, you know, like kind of worried about, you know, kind of what's going to be the next step, I guess, for a lot of people.
Has the UK done much support for venues?
They announced like a kind of a bailout package of like 1.7 billion like pounds for
Wow.
the arts in general, but we've yet to really see how the trickle down, whether it'll reach, you know, like as far down as places like the Louisiana, which is like 120 capacity
Oh wow.
thing. Um, and that's the reason why they're amongst my favourites, is because of you can see bands really early on and get real sense of excitement.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like there's places also like the Trinity, which is like a really amazing church venue, which they've turned into like a kind of arts centre, like a cultural heritage space as well. And yeah, I just feel it's like weird because we're stuck in a situation where we've got no control.
Yeah, and I think it is really strange. And you know, it's the same thing with restaurants, right? It's other small businesses too. Like we have this fear, this very real, like very likely reality, which is that a lot of places are not going to make it. And it's, I guess, my hope, knowing that, is that for the spots that don't make it, that there is something that comes up next that fills that space.
Yeah.
And you know, starting new things is sad, but it also is a chance for something new and different to be created. So I mean, I guess my hope is just that, like, when things start moving again, that we can keep these like small, like community-based spaces, and those are the places that come in and replace the spots that we may have lost. And like, I don't want to see like big box stores and corporations being like, well, I can fit here now. Like,
Yeah.
that would be really sad. Because the people who created those places are still going to want those places. They're, you know, so.
I mean, like, I can speak for myself as if, and I need them for my mental health sometimes. Then also, what I thought about is like kind of because in Bristol we sometimes have quite a few bands doing street performances. So when you guys could look at doing like kind of shows in the middle of the street somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fully expecting there to be like a closure of some official venues, but I'm expecting,
DIY.
yeah, flourishing of DIY spaces, house shows, like unofficial festivals that people do. I think there's going to be a lot of spaces like that are created by artists.
Some of the only performances in Portland this summer have been at the protests, and they've had like different Black artists performing, and it's cool because they're performing in front of like 2,000 people, and it's the first shows that have happened since COVID.
And they're great. They're like they're more energized than the shows that happened before COVID, because it's special, because it's for a cause that is so important, and like people just need it right now. So I mean, like, just getting a snapshot into this like new world where maybe people are going to care more, and it's going to be more artist driven and crowd driven. I think that's an exciting thought going forward.
Yeah, that's one thing I would hope for, to be honest. I mean, because I did see some footage from, I think it was like the Hot 8 brass band. I think I saw playing in Portland at one of the protests. I was like, hang on, I recognise those guys.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I guess that it's going to be an interesting kind of like few months to see what happens. Also, how it will affect people's songwriting as well. You know,
Totally.
Like will it affect? So obviously, like we're going to have to reimagine how we can do shows.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, the songwritings that comes out of this, I'm interested to see what happens. I'm definitely like, I don't really want to hear everyone's like stuck at home people were writing like quarantine songs, like that were explicitly about being in quarantine, which to me felt like a little bit like, okay, we all were in quarantine. I don't know if we need to all hear the same, song. So I'm more interested to see like what many months of kind of being forced to slow down your pace of life, what that does to songwriting, because I think it might do some pretty interesting things it might allow songwriters to focus more on unpacking like memories from the past or on going deeper into things that they've been thinking about. I think that's really where we're going to see some interesting turns in songwriting.
There's also like kind of, I guess, sometimes people thinking about how they communicate their ideas as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because of like, I guess that, because if you got to think of like, how can we make, like playing around with different ideas of how can we use things like video or like kind of art as a way of like kind of bringing people together, but still like obviously like maintaining like social, maybe certain degree of like distancing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I've seen some different variations already that people are getting creative with that.
Well, like Minecraft shows and stuff.
I don't know. Just like trying to maintain a connection. Like how do you try to maintain a connection, you know? And um I think like one thing that's been kind of fascinating about the live stream, this is the only thing I like about it, which is that it allows like the person who's speaking to have a more the artist to have a more like casual conversation because they're in their own home, they can't really see the audience, there's no venue breathing down their neck, so it allows them to have more like off the cuff or intimate conversations. The banter has completely changed with shows.
It's not.
And go, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was saying because it's not quite so instantaneous. Whereas you go to a live show, and
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favourite things, admittedly, to do sometimes is to positively heckle a band. Especially if I get someone that going, oh, I'm not very good on a bit like kind of rubbish at this. I'll like try and like positively heckle them.
That's cool. Well, you still can in the chat window, right? But it's just funny because the artist will then like it'll take like 30 seconds and then they'll be like, oh, and then they'll respond to it, and sometimes it's too late. But
and also sometimes, sorry for butting in again.
Oh no.
Sometimes I've actually found that like I've seen the actual communities actually exist in like the chats sort of thing.
Absolutely.
I'd be going to like a show put on by Specialist Subject on one of their live streams, and I'd find that I know every single person pretty much in the chat stream.
That's cool.
Like, right, okay, this person's here. Right, that means I can make bad jokes with them then.
Well, yeah, I started doing that on our friends' live stream. We played this like live stream festival, and basically what you do is you jump from like every artist hosts it on their Instagram. So we were just jumping from people's Instagram profiles to other Instagram profiles and then just watching it in the live section. And so it was funny because it's like, oh, hey, funny seeing you here.
Yeah. But I always start up by offering up virtual hugs. Just like, because I think that's one of the things which I've missed personally has been partly the human connection sort of thing. And actually like, I mean, I went through, actually, so I'm quite like kind of a big softy person. So like, I like to give people hugs as a way of like kind of, I guess partly like reassurance sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went 3 months without having a hug.
It's hard. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a lot of people are like, I know people who like have quarantined apart from their partner, like, which is wild to me. And like you can that like so some of the people who like don't have any people in their bubble, it's I can't imagine how hard it is too. And like especially like for like there are a lot of people whose where touch and like is so important, like human connection is so important, and I just can't I can't imagine how that would be.
Well, like I said, it helped me that halfway through I had some builders working on my kitchen, so and then I had to like kind of go move into my parents for about a month, really, which did help because then it did give me like, the fact that being around people you know, and then like, and also having like the family dog as well. Because when
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that helps.
animals have been very important.
oh man, she's great. Because like, she'd be like, right, you've been thinking about yourself too much. You need to think about me now. It's like,
Right.
it's like I'm gonna love you because you're gonna give me attention.
Should I go get Frank?
That's what it's. Yeah,
I'm gonna go get our dog.
we have a little dog, and he's been doing that for us. So yeah, he's in our room, I think.
I think the thing is if we don't, I guess that people who've never really lived with dogs wouldn't necessarily understand, you know, like actually how therapeutic they can be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, when you get really stressed out, then all of a sudden, like, you'll have this thing come and poke you, and you'll be like, right, you're giving me attention.
Yeah, definitely. Especially like our dog likes to get in between you and your screen. So if you're like on your phone or like on your computer, he like gets in between, which is so helpful because people need to realize that there's a real physical
God, it's beautiful.
world. So this is him.
That's Frank.
Hello, hey, Frank. You're aren't you? He's definitely, yeah. It's definitely like, wow. Yeah, man. I can almost feel like the dog tongue kind of licking my face in some way.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he would lick your face for sure.
Yeah, I think
He's
that's
a really weird licker.
yeah. I tell you what, my parents' dog is also a great dog hugger. As if,
Oh.
yeah, as if in like she'll get like really excited whenever I turn up, and basically kind of almost put her paws on my chest.
Mm-hmm. That's sweet.
Yeah, and so I'd be like kind of staying with my parents, and sometimes she'd be sleeping in my room, and so like every single morning I had a furry nose on my face. You know, kind of like it's like you're gonna get up now, aren't you? So,
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's very sweet. Definitely a very sweet thing to have during quarantine.
but also, I think the thing is though, is that sometimes I found it also gave me like a reason to get out.
Mhm.
Because like if you don't have any structure, like for instance today I didn't actually leave my flat at all, like all day because of it's been boiling hot.
Uh-huh.
Not really a summer person. I mean, but it was also that if I don't have like the incentive to leave, sort of thing, which is what partly gigs would give me, or like kind of even being involved with like things like art groups, sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you have all that. It's like, okay, you got to put it all on hold. It's like, okay, now I'm forced to be isolated.
Yeah, it's good to be forced to go outside,
Yeah.
to leave the walls,
I
even
need,
if for like 10 minutes.
well, I mean, I'm lucky where I am, as if, and I've got several really beautiful parks near me, which usually I'd say in the evening time I'd be like, right, okay, I'm going to get myself out. I'm going to take, you know, like probably make sure I've got like kind of data on my phone because I'll probably be live streaming a gig whilst like kind of walking around one of the parks.
Wow.
But then I'd also like be trying to notice how, especially you know before we had the traffic kind of up and running again, which is full flow in Bristol. Um, like how would nature be reacting?
Hmm.
So,
It was really cool for a minute. Just right at the beginning, I'm sure it was the same with you, but like there was no traffic, no cars. Like I, I like the air seemed very clear, and just like planes, you know, no, like not as many planes flying. I think still, um, there's like far fewer planes, and so I do wonder if there is a cumulative effect on any pockets of wildlife due to this.
well, I definitely saw like kind of areas being reclaimed by things. So like I'd go out to a park and you'd see things like bumblebees, for instance, were much more prevalent, and also butterfly, a lot more butterflies. It's
Right.
like you know, like about 3 weeks into it, walking through a city centre, just hearing absolutely nothing but birdsong.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
beautiful, but then it's also like it was kind of partly scary to get right. Okay, you have to like readapt your life, but then it was also like kind of really beautiful.
Hmm. Hmm. I definitely felt that for a lot of the beginning. It was like kind of the only saving grace. Like that was the only thing I could really think about to stay positive was like, I'm really excited about um like the nature and outdoors getting a little bit of peace
Yeah,
from this. So
and it's also
now, of course, everything's
It's
back
back
up.
on.
People are driving all over the place, but
yeah, and I think that it's. I mean, it's like yeah, it just made me think about like kind of kind of reminded me because I grew up in the middle of the countryside, so there's certain things which are like seeing bats again, like kind of seeing like little pipistrelle bats, or even like kind of starlings who do like these really amazing like kind of bird formations, which I could just watch for hours.
yeah.
And I guess that it's like wanting more of that, but then also like wanting to find a way to coexist with like nature in some way.
Mhm. Yeah, we've definitely felt in this quarantine time we like nature is like we've really felt how important it is, and have wanted to be in a place that was more connected to nature as opposed to right in the city. And um, I think a lot of people are feeling that way, just like being stuck in a city during quarantine. Like you, the thought of being in a cabin in the woods, like growing your own food, like that kind of thing really appeals a lot
Like
to us now. um, I don't know if it is something we'll be able to do, but I feel like quarantine helped shuffle those priorities a little bit and really like make it clear that like if you lose everything else, not that we've lost everything, but if you lose a lot of what you have, nature is still going to make things better. Like the natural world is still the most.
And it just keeps ticking.
Yeah.
It just keeps going.
So it's definitely really important.
I mean, the natural world will always evolve. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's so. Is that as much as we say that we can control it, it's like no, no, you really can't control. Nature. Nature will always win out at some point.
Yes. Yes.
And
That's
I
what
think,
we're learning.
I mean, like, I mean, I'm lucky with my parents because they've also got a patch of woodland which they own right out in the middle of the West Country in Britain, like kind of which is just like kind of southwest England, and they have this little hut in the middle, so they can, if they feel the need to, then they can escape to their little hut and kind of
That's cool.
and like kind of self isolate in that way. And yeah, it makes me kind of like wish that I could have had that space really.
Can you go out there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going on holiday with them in a couple of weeks' time, sort of thing, which would be really nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I often thought like like going kind of sorry for this is me like kind of switching back to like talking about your music to talk about your record again. I often thought because it feels like as if you are listening into someone's personal diary in some ways. Um, I guess do you ever think about like kind of looking through like your past memories and like kind of figuring out how you could turn them into songs, I guess.
I feel I feel like that's a lot of what I do. I actually don't usually write things in the moment. Like when I'm the most like emotional about something that is happening to me, I can't really write about it in that moment. It's usually too potent of a feeling. Like it's too I don't have enough perspective to really know how I feel about it. And sometimes, I mean, like sometimes maybe I can get like a line down or a feeling down, but I never like write the whole song.
Mm.
I might get just the essence of that feeling. But more often than not, I'm just too overwhelmed with emotion to like think about writing it down. So I think a lot of my songwriting is very reflective. Kind of, I mean, a lot of journal entries like you do at the end of the day, and they do end up being very reflective. So I think that I also have a pretty good memory, and especially about like feelings and places and like my perceptions and conversations. So I think I spent a lot of time thinking about my memories and turning them into ideas for songs.
I think that's definitely something which does kind of come across as well. I mean, because of like, I think it sometimes it can take you a long time to process the emotions. I think,
Mm-hmm.
and
Definitely.
so sometimes you need to like to let things sink in, you know, before. I guess it's about like kind of admitting to being vulnerable, maybe, or like maybe there's a certain level of like vulnerability.
I think that sometimes it takes a long time to figure out like how to express the complex web of emotions that are at play. Um, and I think that a lot of times when people say things in a reactionary way or like in the moment, they end up saying things that they don't mean or saying things in a way that gets misconstrued. Um, and for me, it's really important that whatever I'm feeling gets represented in with as much truth as possible.
Mm.
And I think that's why for me, that's why I take a lot of time. And in terms of vulnerability, I think it would be far more vulnerable to be able to like say exactly what you're feeling in the moment and write these like more like impassioned songs like in the moment. I think that would be very vulnerable, and that's something that I have a hard time with. I like to whoa, where did you go? Oh, I, I very much like to control how things are represented.
Mm.
Um, so, but I do think there's definitely an aspect of vulnerability. There's like maybe part of why I wait too is just having the courage to, or having the time to get used to the idea that whatever I want to say is going to be heard.
Yeah.
Because it might not be as easy right in the moment to say what you want to say.
Also, I think there is a certain vulnerability to like taking the time to honestly say something, and like, you know, there's a whole catalog of songs that are written about like impassioned emotions, like you did this and it hurt me, or like this person left me, or like I left this person, you know, and it's like we've kind of heard all that a lot.
Mm.
And so it's interesting to like, yeah, maybe there is a vulnerability in being able to process and then write what a processed version of a feeling is.
I think,
Yeah.
I think there's also a certain level. I mean, I've always thought, like, if you know, even with putting out a record, that there's still a certain level of vulnerability with that, because like, I mean, like, 'cause I do quite a lot of artwork, and I feel, I guess that sometimes when I post up pictures and stuff like that of things which I've drawn, then it is like kind of you've got to learn to kind of let go of some things in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, hey, look, you know, some people are going to have some opinion who like it, and then like learning not to be too harsh on yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And being prepared for not everyone to like what you put out.
It's not for everyone. It's for whoever likes it.
I think that's always a challenge, and I think that we all of the touring that we did for like breweries and wineries and places that weren't really venues for people who didn't really come to hear music or have much interest in hearing music. I think that really prepared us for the reality of releasing music, which is that it's not going to get to everyone. Like, it's not going to connect with everyone. Some people are going to ignore it. Some people are going to say like,
this is awful.
This is awful, or worse, like they're going to say this is boring. So
But then,
yeah.
like every one person that it does touch, I guess it makes it even more powerful. You know, when you,
Absolutely. It's not a given, it's not a freebie. You have to earn it. So
I mean, like, I guess that because of like for myself, as if in like I find well, I find a lot of social situations very difficult, but whereas like I guess my safety zones would be at gigs, would be
mhm,
literally down the front by almost right in front of the artist or to just to the side of them sort of thing.
mhm.
And I guess that we've also got to I guess reevaluate how that's going to change. I guess to a certain extent.
Yeah.
how
I like how shows will be.
how shows will be, you mean? Or
Maybe or like kind of getting used to being around people again.
Oh
mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
I
Yeah.
think people are gonna do that really quickly. Cause I mean, like yeah, I don't know. I think 2 drinks and everyone's pretty much used to hanging out around each other.
Yeah.
Like
But more than that, like I actually believe that this period of quarantine, like we're in it now and it feels like forever, but I think that once we're through it, it's going to feel like a small window in comparison to the whole rest of our lives and to the whole rest of our like reality. And like how when you're in winter and you can't really remember what summer feels like, or when we're in summer you can't really like remember exactly how winter feels in
Exactly how
reality. You're like, I can't believe I was ever cold. I think like it's going to be like that. I think people just adapt to their current reality so quickly
mm,
that my prediction is that it'll bounce back really fast, people's mentality about being around other people once it's safe.
yeah.
If it's not safe,
that's gonna
then
take a long
it's
time.
not going to happen. Like people are not going to feel at ease.
I guess it's a bit like things like kind of also when you're looking at like kind of all the summer events having been cancelled. So like looking at there's definitely a desire I've seen from groups of people to get back out there and to reintegrate
Hmm.
thing because of I mean obviously like I mentioned both like so probably this weekend I probably would be in the field somewhere
Yeah.
with like a kind of canvas ceiling. Uh,
Hmm.
Yeah,
Same.
Probably
yeah.
running around the entire field, seeing as many bands as possible.
Yeah.
I'm definitely when I say obsessive compulsive, I am definitely very obsessive compulsive with like kind of with my gig going. So
Uh-huh.
it's nearly always like, what's the first thing on? What's the very last thing on? And I'll pretty much make it through to all of them.
Wow.
That's yeah, that's cool. It's
Then sometimes I've also found that if I get too hyperly excited, then I can't calm down. So like, there's some shows which I've seen which have overly stimulated me, and I've not been able to sleep afterwards. Like,
mm-hmm.
it's like kind of either like I remember going to the festival called Latitude, and it was the first time I'd ever seen Cat Power, and that moved me so much that I had to like literally be sat on my own for about an hour afterwards just because I was like kind of processing all the emotions and all like through to I don't know, like there's been some acts which I've seen where I just literally haven't been physically been able to sleep afterwards.
That's amazing. I mean, I think that, and that's really cool. I think because it shows that 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 you're not like just flipping the channels through to like, okay, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Like, I think it kind of like festivals. That's the one risk that you run is that like because there's so many bands, it's like you're watching TV almost. You're not
Yeah,
like you finish a band and immediately you're like on to the next one.
Or halfway through this set, you're like,
Oh,
okay, I
but I
want to go
should be
catch
seeing
this
this
other
other
band.
one too.
yeah,
And it prevents you from being able to sit with something and let it have a real effect on you and your life. And I think like that example of being unable to do anything but just sit and process the art, I think that's like when art is doing the most work.
yeah. I mean, it's like for instance, well, one of my favourite festivals, as I've mentioned it before, is End of the Road Festival. And
Mm.
last year they had headlining one of the stages was Low, and it's like
Mm.
every single time I've seen Low, it's like I try and describe it to people, and it's like they think it's something really upsetting. So, like, it's like the most emotionally draining experience is going and watching them, especially with their last album, because like there was huge parts of the set where they were hitting people with like 10-minute long drones, and it was just like, wow, okay, you could literally feel every single one of my hairs on the back of my neck being pricked.
Mm. Wow.
And I think it's just like, I remember like running off to go and see another band, which I wanted to go and see kind of straight after them, but still, as good as that band were, it was like my head was still going, this is not Low. This is,
Mm. Mhm.
you know, and like, it's very much, they're very much like one of those bands where I do openly pretty much cry every single time I've seen them. Because I think
That's
it's something, because I think sometimes there's something with music that we can't always explain, like how it does connect to people even with a language barrier.
mhm.
Like people can't pick up on the emotional energy or something.
I fully believe that.
Yeah,
Um, I think
I
it's
think that's
what
probably why most musicians play.
yeah,
Because that's how it moves them.
and I think it weaves like it weaves in your mind, like your mental state, but it also weaves in your body as well, in ways that you can't quite put into words, and it really brings in like your memories and just kind of all like like all the sensations kind of come together with music when it's real, when it's good, like authentic music.
But I've had actually situations where I've actually had cinematic, like, kind of visual flashbacks to past
Mm-hmm.
memories from either watching certain artists. Like, I'd probably go to like an experimental classical gig, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I remember having such intense visual flashbacks that it caused me to almost have a bit of a breakdown
Wow.
because if it was like really intense, but then it also kind of like reminded me that music shouldn't just always be about necessarily feeling good. It should also about connecting with every single sense that we feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. um I think it's actually, yeah, I mean, I personally like sad songs a lot. And I can't really write just fully happy songs, so I'm with you on
That's the thing.
that.
You got to write honesty from who you are,
Mhm.
and that's the thing. Is that I mean, I love great sad songs. I mean, like I think pretty much some of the greatest songs in the world are some of the saddest.
Mhm.
You know, when
Yep.
looking at whether it be people like Leonard Cohen through to PJ Harvey, um,
Mhm.
through to like um, who else would I put on there? As mostly like kind of Cat Power. You know, you listen to like some of her stuff, and it's like it's really powerful, and it's like or like I think most of my favorite songs are kind of sad songs, or they're songs with which have a certain spirit to them.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the same way with me as well. I mean, that's why we love like Elliott Smith and you know, like
Yeah,
other bands.
other bands.
There are some
But
other bands.
but even like people I'd say like people like Daniel Johnston sort of thing. He can he can no no one else could write his songs.
No,
It,
definitely not.
and sometimes you just got to be. I think that's part of like well, the reason why I brought up the thing with vulnerability is sometimes just to go like, look, this is who I am. You
Mhm.
might like this, you might not.
Right.
And I think that I'm trying to figure out how to word things. 'Cause sometimes I have to like kind of visualize things in my head, like when I'm trying to ask questions
Huh.
and that sort of thing. I think that there's, I mean, like for me, like I always connect through art if it makes me feel something.
Hmm.
So if it makes me, if I react in a certain emotional way, then I will go and pick up that artist record, or I will go and, or like go and get tickets for their show because I want to kind of understand what they're about.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really hard to kind of sometimes understand how are we gonna teach kids to process some of those emotions as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there should just be really some more really sad kid songs, I think. 'Cause the children's music is too happy. It's all too happy, I think.
But some of it, though, when you analyze it, actually is a lot sadder than you think.
It just sounds
Oh,
happy.
yeah.
Well, it's like it's like something like some of the contemporary pop artists, for instance. Like if you analyze some of their lyrics, it'd be like, okay, so she's not really singing about like kind of being happy. It's like dreaming of being happy, but the actual reality is actually kind of something else. And I guess that's something which might come out of this period. Actually, might be like people writing songs which will themselves be happy.
Totally. Yeah, because they need to, because they need it.
Yeah, and I think that whether it's like reimagining something like Somewhere of the Rainbow or something like that sort of thing,
Mhm.
like those old sort of those songs. Yeah.
I think I have to hop on a different work
Wow.
meeting pretty soon. Because I'm still working throughout my day, but so I think we have to head out pretty soon here.
Okay. Thank you so much for doing this, Maita. It's been an
Yeah.
pleasure. And
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for asking good questions.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't do that.
well, I guess the thing is, I'm not really professional. I'm just very amateur.
That's probably better.
Yeah, it's not like this like automatic canned like this is what I ask musicians like
all the time.
All the time. I mean, maybe you do, but it's.
I've done a few times because obviously you've got to understand like kind of how it has affected other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
we are a few things which I probably have asked on the other chats, but then like, but then quite a lot of that's still me flying by the seat of my pants.
That's cool.
That's kind of more fun.
I like that.
It's more natural.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope we get to see you at a show someday and hang out. That'd be great.
Please come and play Bristol because like the people
Yeah,
here.
it's definitely on the list.
Try as soon as we can.
Yeah, man. Well,
we'll be like madmen as soon as it's possible.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think there's gonna be so many people. I think my gig clashes are gonna be just log jammed.
Yeah.
I mean, which one of these 15 shows do I want to go to?
Exactly.
Right.
But thank you so much, Maita. It's been an absolute pleasure to virtually meet you guys and hopefully
definitely.
you guys for real. That'll be wonderful.
Absolutely, we'll make it happen.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Look after Portland for me.
Oh yeah.
Take care, guys. Bye bye.